question. What's the most utterly country you can think of? There are a lot of good candidates, but Somalia is definitely making strong moves towards the prize. I mean, there are actual pirates there, not knockoff ones like us knowledge raiders. Sure, a lot of other countries in Africa are also dealing with severe problems like civil wars and dictatorships, but Somalia has all the most outrageously extreme problems a broken country can possibly have combined.
A nation in fragments, a place where flags outnumber laws and history is more rumor than record. A country the world calls a failed state. Its name summoned for crisis, for collapse, for lawlessness. But beneath these headlines, under the silence left by erasure, lies a memory the world forgot. A coast where, for more than 100 years, even empire waited for permission to land. It's 1849. A British warship glides through fog toward the harbors of Khorey. The officers expect chaos. Their charts warn of anarchy. Their journals speak of stateless tribes. Instead, they find silence. No shouts, no signals, just a white flag rising above the rocks. Not a symbol of surrender, but a sovereign line in the sand. The officer's hand tightens on the rail. He writes, his pen shaken with surprise.
The British flag was hoisted by the ship, but the Sultan's banner remained above.
Lieutenant C.J. Cruttenden, Royal Navy, 1849. Cruttenden was not alone. 5 years later, the explorer Richard Burton would record with respect and surprise.
The Sultan's plain white banner is universally respected. No foreigner may land without explicit permission.
Richard Burton, First Footsteps in East Africa, 1856. How could the world call this coast a void when it was governed by protocol, by council, by a discipline that began long before any European arrival? Here, order was not imposed from outside. It was woven from the ground up, from centuries of her, Somali customary law, and the authority of a single, silent banner. This white flag was not only a sign of sovereignty, it echoed a tradition as old as Islam itself. The banners of justice were plain, white or black, symbols of unity and lawful governance under God. On this African coast, the Warsangali drew from that same wellspring, making law visible, dignity unspoken, and peace possible by their own hand. When a foreign ship appeared, no one, no merchant, missionary, or officer could set foot on land until the Sultan's flag was raised, until the councils gave consent. It wasn't just the British who learned to wait. Arabs, Indians, and Italian captains all stopped at the same threshold, watching the white banner for legal permission. Even the British government put it in writing.
It is a point of native etiquette that the Sultan's flag be raised in precedence in his harbours, and our officers are advised not to challenge this.
It was sovereignty, recognized and respected by all. But over time, the world stopped looking. Textbooks erased these laws. New flags replaced old ones, and the price of erasure was paid by those who had defended their dignity the longest. When the empire finally left, the legacy was not what they found, but what they destroyed. The Warsangali paid in exile, leaders banished, traditions broken, ports and livelihoods torn from the fabric of functioning society. Across Africa, those who guarded their own law and banner were left not only to mourn what was taken, but to rebuild with less than they began. So why did this story vanish? Maybe because this story doesn't fit the myth of Africa as a void, the myth of waiting for order to arrive from somewhere else. But the memory endures in coastal voices, in the stitched cloth, in whispered stories. This is not just a story about a flag. It is a story of dignity denied, of sovereignty erased, and of a tradition that still lives, quiet as the dawn along the Somali coast. Join Arkhivum as we return to the harbor, to the banner above empire, to the Somali law that stood even when the price of resistance was silence. The British did not come for curiosity. They came for control. 1849, Lieutenant C.J. Cruttenden, dispatched by the Admiralty. His orders are clear. Map the shore, test the tribes, report on civilization. He expects anarchy. He expects shifting alliances, clans locked in endless dispute. He expects, above all, a blank slate, a land waiting for law. But what Cruttenden finds is order. He drops anchor outside Las Khorey. There's no confusion. There, instead, a visible protocol. He writes almost in disbelief.
The Warsangali are governed by a hereditary chief, is universally acknowledged. Their obedience is greater than is usual among Somali, and their allegiance unbroken. They pay regular customs, and no foreign flag is raised above their own. Lieutenant C.J. Cruttenden, Journal of the Royal Geographical Society, 1849.
Cruttenden records what no British officer expects. Customs collected. Trade is taxed. The Sultan's law is visible, practiced, respected. A new arrival, bearing famous name Richard Francis Burton. Polyglot, explorer, skeptic. Burton too is primed for disorder. He sees instead a harbor in suspense. Las Khorey at dawn, the white flag waiting, the townsfolk standing just beyond the reach. He writes,
The Sultan's banner, a plain white flag, is hoisted when foreign ships approach, signaling peace and protection. No one may land without permission. But it is universally respected along the coast. Richard F. Burton, 1856.
Goods are weighed and taxed with precision. Foreign merchants submit lists of wares. Customs are levied, receipts signed, and market inspectors check for fair dealing. In the council hall, legal clerks record every agreement, names, dates, cargo, and tariff. Their ledgers as detailed as anything kept in London. No one waits for law to arrive from the outside. It is already here, visible, documented, and enforced. So when the white flag is raised, it is not a relic of a forgotten world. It is a signal of a system, a port state whose rules are respected by all who cross its threshold. From the earliest days of Islam, the Prophet, peace be upon him, entered alliances beneath banners of no inscription, pure white, pure black. His sunnah, testifying that justice belongs to the whole community, not a single ruler. The Warsangali too chose a flag with no crest, no clan, no sultan's name, only a field of white. Its whiteness covers all who seek justice beneath it. This is a law without emblem, authority without arrogance, and memory still alive of a time when to raise a white banner was to invoke the very tradition of Prophet Muhammad himself. The year is 1886. A British gunboat bristling with cannon and painted in the color of empire looms off the Somali coast. White uniforms on deck, brass telescopes. The ship's log records impatience. Orders from London are clear. Land, negotiate, secure the port. But the land does not answer. No small boat leaves the shore. No drums, no welcome, no gun salute. Only the gulls call. Only the tide moves. The Union Jack flaps at the mast. But on shore, the flagpole stands empty, as if the whole coast is holding its breath. Hours pass, the sun climbs and falls. The harbor remains silent. Finally, the officer writes, his words edged with both frustration and awe.
We could not land, for the Sultan had not made himself known. No banner flew. The coast held us off. And so a British gunboat, armed, commissioned, and fueled by empire, drifted in stillness, waiting for a strip of cloth to rise.
Because sovereignty here is not measured in guns, but in protocol. Far away in London, marble corridors, colonial officials codify the lesson. For the world's greatest navy to wait at anchor for a Somali flag, this is not just history, but a revelation. Dignity can be written not only in treaties, but in ritual and restraint. No fortress could enforce it. No threat could break it. For one long moment in the history of empire, it was a Somali law, raised in silence, written in ritual, that kept the world at bay. The banner that once held empire offshore was not flown in generations, not because it was torn down, but because it was quietly erased. When Somalia was born, 1960, a new flag rose over Mogadishu, a star for 5 lands, a promise of unity. But unity required forgetting. The white flag that had ruled Somali coastline for centuries were never invited into the future. The council records faded, the law became rumor. History was rewritten until the old sovereignties simply disappeared. Colonizers had silenced it first, but the post-colonial state finished the erasure. Textbooks grew thin, dignity withered, a nation lost sight of the law it once made for itself. But not all is lost. In Las Khorey and Ilayo, memory found refuge in the voice of elders, in the songs of fishermen, in the needle and thread of a new generation. We did not lower the flag, an old man murmurs. We just stopped being asked about it. The Warsangali are not alone. Across Africa, sovereignty was replaced with silence. Kingdoms forgotten, councils overwritten, treaties ignored, flags vanished. Now, the continent stands on a cracked foundation, asking why the house does not hold. This is not just history, it is evidence. Proof that Africa did not wait for law to arrive, it made its own. Had the truth been honored, had those protocols not been buried, perhaps sovereignty could not have collapsed so easily. What future can be built when people remember who they truly were? Not the state, not the colonizer, not the textbook, but the banner. Yes, the banner